It may come as no surprise that the pharmaceutical industry is the most profitable business in the country. Americans pay far more for their prescription drugs than the citizens of any place on earth. It'll also come as no surprise that as a political issue, the high price of drugs has united both Republicans and Democrats. More than 1 million Americans now buy their medication in Canada, and it's no longer just older people taking buses across the border. Mayors and governors from Minnesota to Alabama are helping Americans get Canadian drugs by mail. Such purchases are technically illegal. So far, the government has declined to prosecute individual customers or the cities and states involved. But the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has raised the specter of safety. And for more than a year, the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Mark McClellan, has been waging a campaign against Canadian importation. In these years, since Americans, for reasons purely of price, have been buying their drugs in Canada, how many incidents of harmful, unsafe drugs do you have?
We don't know.
You're making a case that they're unsafe, but nobody says how unsafe or how common the problems are for drugs that people buy.
Well, that's the problem.
In Canada.
We don't know because we don't have the authority to tell where these drugs have come from or how they're, or to monitor closely how they're getting into the United States and to make sure that the drugs that come in are safe. It could be a widespread problem.
That's a lot of hooey. There is no reason that buying drugs in Canada is any less safe than buying them in the United States.
Dr. Marcia Angel was executive editor of the New England Journal of Medicine for 11 years. She's currently writing a book on the secrets of the drug industry.
The people who say you have to worry about the safety of drugs from Canada are imagining the way it was in the old days, that there's a moat around the United States, that drugs that are sold in the United States are made by only American companies and made in this country. It's not that way anymore. Pfizer, for example, has 60 manufacturing sites in 32 countries. So the drugs are made all over the world. They're sold all over the world.
Most of Pfizer's anti-cholesterol drug, Lipitor, is made in Ireland, the same Lipitor that's sold in both U.S. and Canadian pharmacies. Other familiar drugs like Zocor, Nexium, and Prevacid are the same Zocor, Nexium, and Prevacid sold in Canada. There's drugs that are sold in Canada often at as little as half the price of the same drug in the United States. The drug companies still make a profit on those, do they not?
Oh, sure. Why else would they sell them in Canada? They're not charities. Of course they make a profit.
The U.S. is the only industrialized country without some form of control on the prices of drugs. The U.S. also accounts for more than half of the industry's profits. In order to keep those profits up, the drug companies have joined the FDA in trying to shut down imports from Canada. Canadian pharmacies are feeling the pressure. This one is just over the border. Americans account for 30% of its business. You're a little nervous about us mentioning the actual name of this pharmacy.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, we've had several letters from the big multinationals certainly threatening to cut off the drug supply very explicitly if you are supplying medications to U.S. patients.
As plain as that?
As plain as that, absolutely.
This pharmacy supplies drugs to municipal workers in the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, through a program set up by former Springfield Mayor Michael Albano.
The major pharmaceutical companies are saying, we're going to limit our supply. What does that tell you? It tells you that they want to keep the artificially high prices in America. How brazen is that? We can save anywhere from $4 to $9 million on an annual basis if I get everybody enrolled and everybody goes to Canada. And that's a huge amount of money right now. If I can save $9 million for my city and put it back, redirect it back into police and fire, into public education, it'll make a world of difference. So it's a huge savings.
What would motivate the FDA, which is not in the business of profiting from drugs, to put out this alarm about Canadian drugs?
The influence of the pharmaceutical industry on our government is huge, and the FDA is a part of the executive branch of the government. And this is just the propaganda that's put out to do the drug companies' bidding, to make sure that Americans don't have access to cheaper drugs. Because then they'll come to know what's going on. And what's going on is that these drugs, while they're made by global companies all over the world, are sold in this country for about double what they're sold for everywhere else. And that they want to keep secret.
We asked Dr. Angel about the case the industry invariably makes to justify drug prices. The industry says that without maintaining these high prices, it will cripple or seriously affect innovation and research into new drugs. Any validity to that?
None at all. This is a kind of blackmail. What they're saying is, don't mess with us. Let us charge whatever we want for our drugs. Otherwise, you won't get the miracles. And the truth is that they spend less on R&D than they make in profits, and far less than they spend on marketing, and they don't make that many miracles in the first place.
It should be said, however, that the drugs that we take have given us longer lives and better longer lives.
That is absolutely true. The problem is that we're no longer getting our money's worth.